We have a great partnership with our friends over at the Blank Park Zoo, and one of the things we look forward to a lot is the speaker series that they have out at the Blank Park Zoo. And last night we had to do a little shifting of the gears on the fly, change of plans, and thankfully we have Iowa State University really close to Des Moines, and that's where they went to get a speaker for last night's series. Jackie, Dr. Jill Pruetz is joining us right now. She's in the Iowa State University Department of Anthropology, and she has done some incredible work with chimpanzees. And I've known a lot of things about Iowa State University. Jackie knows a lot of things, and so does Mark Ferree. I didn't know anybody there had worked with primates.
Yes. Oh, yes. I spend I spend most of my time over there in West Africa nowadays. So, yeah, half of my time at least is in West Africa, and then I'm here right now on campus teaching, and so yeah, so I'm not up in Ames all the time.
Now, when people think of primates around the Des Moines area, we think of the APE. Let me make sure we get this right. APE, Cognition and Conservation Initiative, aka the Great Ape Trust, from years ago, and we mentioned that to you and whether or not you worked with them at all. And not only do you work with them, you're a little bit more involved.
Right. I'm on the board. I've always had students that have worked there over the years. I started out with captive primates, and so to me, I live vicariously through the students because it's one of the most amazing places. I was so excited when I first heard they were coming to Des Moines because it gives people insight into things that I deal with all the time, but most people don't realize what remarkable animals these apes are. So I mean, I think it's a great thing for Iowa to have, and yeah, pretty awesome place, I have to say.
So what were you able to talk about and share the message of last night at the Blank Park Zoo?
Well, I talked about my own research in Senegal, and so I studied chimps that live in a very different habitat compared to all the other chimp study sites. They live in a savanna, so they do some really interesting different things.
Now, what do you mean by live in a savanna, for those that may not understand what that is?
Well, you know, if you've seen all the Jane Goodall documentaries and things like that, you're always there in this nice lush forest.
Right.
These guys live in there are trees there, but it's a woodland savanna, so there are grasslands. It's incredibly hot, so 115 degrees at times. They're limited by water. During the dry season, bushfires come through, and yeah, so of course that's a very lush scene during the rainy season. And they have stresses that other chimps don't have to deal with. So where to find water, how to deal with high heat stresses. They're not, they have to look for different types of prey to hunt, and so yeah, that's a nice shot, I think, of that open grassland type of area during the
So what do
season.
they do when it gets to be 115 degrees and the water is scarce?
Well, their ranging really focuses on these water sources, but one of the things they do seems pretty common sense to us is they soak in pools of water, but that's really something that chimps don't do elsewhere. And so that was one of the things that kind of struck us as really odd. So they'll actually compete over access to these pools of water and just soak in there. They stay in caves though, so caves are cooler than other areas, and so they'll actually also compete over access to caves, and they move around and feed at night sometimes during the dry season when there's a full moon.
Now, you mentioned hunting prey, so what type of things are these chimpanzees eating?
Well, one of the things that's unique about this group of chimps is they actually hunt with tools, which you don't see elsewhere. So they make tools, but their prey item is this, actually it's a very cute little primate called a bush baby. And
you've heard of those.
Yeah, right. Bush babies they're nocturnal, they're active at night. So during the day they're trying to sleep in these hollow cavities, and chimps make these stick tools, and then they stab them in there to try to get the bush babies. So,
are you serious?
Yeah, that's their main prey species. So you don't see that elsewhere. Other chimps at other sites have other prey items that they can hunt, but chimps here kind of have to be a little bit innovative. And the other interesting thing about that is it's not males that are hunting the most, it's females. So that was another difference that you see
What reaction did you have when you first realized that this is how they were feeding?
Well, it was just, it was hard to comprehend, I guess. So, you go in, you've read all these different things about chimps, the same with the water. It's like, oh, chimps don't like water, and they hunt by chasing down monkeys, and so it kind of takes a little while to get past your biases, which is great because my Senegalese team doesn't have those biases. So, I mean, it's just been a learning experience. And I'll go out with these questions, and then...
Is that the kind of stick they use there?
Yeah, that was Lucille's, actually. Lucille made that. And so they're constantly shifting the way I think and what I'm focusing on, which is fun. I mean, so I have a plan and I go out and I'll study this particular thing, and then they'll do something different and I have to shift gears. So it's fun for me.
What's your fascination with apes? Like, what got you to this point in your life?
Well, it's interesting because I didn't want to study chimps. Everybody wants to study chimps. They're, interesting, and they're like people sort of. And so I actually wanted to study a New World monkey called tamarins and marmosets. They have at the Blank Park Zoo the golden lion tamarins. That's what I wanted to study.
Okay.
But I volunteered with chimps before I went to grad school. I worked with captive chimps, and that ruined me for every other species.
Where'd you go to school
were
at?
stuck.
In Texas at Texas State. It was Southwest Texas State back then, and so near Austin.
And you were hooked. You just
that was
fell
it.
in love.
Yeah, I mean, it was just it's hard to imagine how similar they are to people, especially emotionally, until you have that sort of interaction. So when I study wild chimps, we don't interact with them.
Right.
Sometimes they want to interact with us, and we have to
back off.
not do that. But when you work with captive apes, it's a different experience. And it was just that got me hooked.
Do you have a preference? I know you started with captive, and now you're doing much more in the wild. Do you have a preference of what you enjoy doing for study purposes?
I guess I would prefer what I do now with wild chimps, partly because as an anthropologist we usually do field primatology, and the questions we have are answered that way. But I mean, it's always a great joy for me to visit ACCI or the zoo. Yesterday I got to see the rhinos, and so oh my gosh, that sort of experience, that is just like, I love that. So I like to have a little of both.
The conservation series is not only about education, but also learning how we can give back and make sure our Earth is sustainable so these creatures can continue on for a long and fulfilled life. What can we do here in Iowa to learn from this? I know we have what used to be the Great Ape Trust, which is an amazing place, but what can we do to make sure that these guys continue to have a habitat and a life?
Well, I mean, one thing I really like with zoos these days, and the Blank Park Zoo is a great example, is they have these conservation partnerships. And so, there are a number of us, and I think everybody that does field primatology is a conservationist, because you have to be. And so there are partnerships, and the Blank Park Zoo funds some great organizations like Ngamba Island in Uganda, which is a chimp sanctuary. I was able to visit there for the first time this year, and that sort of thing. And just visiting the zoo is, I think, an easy and fun way to help give back, because a large proportion of what they bring in goes to conservation projects. But even I use social media a lot. I spend too much time on social media, but I use it a lot to do fundraising for my nonprofit. That's basically how I got my nonprofit listed with an organization that it's listed with now. And so, I think there's a lot of different things. Just putting the message out, I think, is remarkable. How much you can teach people about, the palm oil trade and how that hurts orangutans, things like that. So I think, anybody can do that sort of thing. Put it on your Facebook page.
All right, Dr. Jill, what is your social media platform of choice?
Facebook. If you look at the amount of time I spend on social media, but I like Twitter.
Okay, so what's your Twitter handle?
It's just Jill Pruetz.
Okay.
And how about Facebook?
Jill Pruetz.
Okay.
And also,
You're keeping it simple.
But I do have a Neighbor Ape Facebook page as well. That's my nonprofit, is Neighbor Ape.
Neighbor Ape.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll keep those. We'll put those up on ours as well.
Great.
Well, Iowa State is so lucky to have you.
Right.
Thank you so much for doing the Blank Park Zoo speech last night. That was great that you came in on such short notice. And B, thank you for being here.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'll have to come